Right then guys, welcome to my setup quick start guide for the Yashicamat 124g. Now there's not much difference between this and the non-G version. The non-G version has a little bit more chrome on it. This one's mainly black, the other one's quite silver. Now, medium format TLR, made by Yashica in Japan. This one's great, it's got a built-in meter, so you don't need to carry around your own external one. You can use an iPhone app these days, but this does a pretty good job of it. I'm going to show you how to load some film, I'm going to show you how to compose it, and I'm going to show you how to use the top waist level viewfinder system. You guys might not be used to it, it does take some getting used to. The view is mirrored. Okay, here we go. Now, loading this camera is pretty simple. It's good to put the lens caps on because you're going to be lying it on its front. What you do is lay it down like this. On the bottom, you'll notice this open and close screw. So I'm going to spin this for open. You'll see this black sort of tab slides out, releases the catch. Here you go. Now, you guys can see, here's where your frames are taken. You have a space for a spool at the top, and you've got this space for a spool underneath. What you've got to do is actually, if you look here, I've got a small film holder. You take one of the spools that came with the camera or is left by your last roll. Now what you do is you shoot the roll from here through to the top. You're left with one at the bottom when you open your camera after taking the film out. So take that one at the bottom, you put it in the top, and that's relatively easy to do. You line up the tab with the silver slot for it. You can pull the side bit out, that clicks into place. If you notice, when I advance the film with this winder, that moves around. There's a slot along the top, and you want to have that slot at the top, because that's what you're going to feed some film into. So you can, don't worry about the winder for a second, I'm just going to go around again so I can fold it out of the way. Now this is a roll of exposed film, that's what you get out of it. Here is a roll of new Portrait 400 120 roll. So open the wrapper, it comes with a sort of paper sleeve holding it in. You can rip that off, don't have to be too neat with it. Once you've broken the seal, you can wrap around the front and that will just fall off. What you're looking for here is this little tab. That's what you're going to feed into there. But first, this has to be placed onto the lower roll. Careful when you do that. You can see if I put it upside down, this spring, a little bit delicate. So you push this one on, careful not to put too much stress on the spring. Once this end goes in, the other side can drop. I'm going to place it back on its front. Okay, now this film, you've got to be very careful to keep it within these two lines. Take the little tail. Hang on guys, I'm giving you a better perspective than I'm getting, so it's going to take me a second to line up. There we go. Okay, so can you see that I'm just lining it up along the sides? It's much easier than I'm making it look. Now I'm going to start to advance the film. Here, this is the difficult bit. I'm watching closely these two corners where the film is meeting the roll. If they rock up over it, or they are shifted too far to the side, you might have trouble, but this seems to have gone well. Okay, when you're using 120 roll film, what you've got to do is advance this paper until you line it up with a small green arrow in here. Now you don't have to be too exact, and it's not easy to see. There's a red arrow here for 220 film. You can use this camera for 220 film by setting this pressure plate as such, but I would advise using 120. It's very hard to get hold of 220. So this film is nicely lined up. Just going to advance this forwards. Okay guys, see this black arrow here? I don't know if you can see this small green notch and that is almost precisely lined up with it. So leaving this in the 12 exposure position, case gets closed, and I'm going to rotate this latch, drawing in the pin. There we go. That camera is now sealed. If you turn it over to the winding side, you might be able to see here an S. I'm going to wind that round until I get a 1. What that's doing is it's taking the paper part of your roll and wrapping it round the spool and allowing the emulsion, the light sensitive place, to advance to your first frame. That's just happened. I've hit 1. So I can go half a turn back to here. If you see I close it, there's a little hole that goes into, so that's secured. Now, almost ready to shoot. Then guys, now the camera's ready to go, all you've got to do is focus, compose, and change your settings. Now, if you can see when the camera's closed, this line across the top, this red needle and this yellow caliper kind of thing are my meter. The aim is to get the red needle between the yellow fork. You can either do this by raising your shutter speed or by lowering your aperture. They work together, so you can have very low aperture, very high shutter speed, and vice versa. You can set it at different areas. This is your film speed. So I got this set to 400 for my loaded film. Right, open up the lid. Got a little magnifying glass, don't have to use it. In fact, you can put the magnifying glass up, put this down, and use that as a sports finder, they call it. But most people will be using it like this. Now, if you can see the screen, you see I'm focusing on the building in front of me. Now, it's quite easy to check your focus. I'm setting to infinity because I'm more than a few feet away. Now, when checking your exposure meter, you've got to be careful that no bright light is shining directly into this part of the camera. That's where it's going to meter from. But line up your scene, bearing in mind it's going to be mirrored left to right. You use this dial here to change your shutter speed. It's quite easy to do. This dial on the left changes your aperture value. If you can see in here, that goes from 3.5 up to 32. Let's put this down to F4. Here we go. To take the picture, you're going to press this button here, or you can use a self-timer on this side of the camera. If you want to use the self-timer, you have to be incredibly careful to set your flash to X. In fact, I'd suggest never taking it off X. Putting it on M and using the self-timer can damage your camera, so make sure it's on X. It helps you remember, red means safe when both are on the same color. This is on M, you don't want to use that. It's for special flash guns. Read up on it if you're going to start using a flash. There is a hot shoe up here, cold shoe rather. Okay, take a picture like that, or the self-timer. Here we go. I do have to bear in mind that I'm seeing out of this lens and I'm taking a picture with this lens, which is slightly lower down. You can see that I've got the camera placed on a table. The view I'm going to get is actually going to include more of the table than this viewfinder might show. If I put it on this film box, I might get what I was going to get previously. So here we go. Camera's set, finger on the trigger. That's it, picture taken. If you want to turn the meter off, you can close the lid. Saves your battery. You can replace the battery by opening this port here, but they last quite a long time. They're only active when the lid's up. So, first frame taken. Get the film out of the way. Advancing to the next frame is very easy. Pull the lever up, twist it around until the film is advanced to the next frame. Once you hear the click and you see this advance to 2, what you can do is you can bring this back and lay it back into this holder. It makes the handle go flush. And then you're ready for your next frame. I do recommend locking this off when you're not using it because it's quite easy to nudge And bearing in mind you only get 12 frames per roll, you don't want to be too cavalier with film use. Okay, cover back on. Thanks very much.